The CEO carried a fainted woman and twin babies into his mansion, only to fall to his knees begging her forgiveness. Warm welcome, my beautiful YouTube family. I'm your storyteller, James, and I truly hope you're doing well today. Happy Easter to each and every one of you, my beloved family. How's your Easter going? I'd love to hear. Drop it in the comments. On this special day, I pray joy overflows in your heart, peace fills your home, and love wraps around your family like sunlight. May your days be blessed, your dreams guarded, and may you always walk in grace, favor, and divine light. And tell me, where are you listening from? I love seeing how far our story family reaches. If you're new here, or if you've been watching but haven't yet, I have one small request. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story filled with love, healing, and transformation. Now let's bring today's story to life. The grand lights of the Wright estate shimmered through the downpour as a sleek black car halted at the iron gates. Raindrops danced on the windshield as the driver opened the back door. Luke Wright, the notorious billionaire made of steel and silence, staggered out. The sharp scent of whiskey clung to him. His tie was slack, shirt half unbuttoned, exposing a sculpted chest beneath expensive fabric. He said nothing, didn't glance at the driver, just walked toward the towering front doors like a ghost haunted by his own shadow. Thunder groaned in the distance, but the real storm was just beginning. Inside, Aliana, a soft-spoken maid with honey-brown skin and spiraled curls cascading down her back, waited anxiously. She'd stayed late, ensuring every room was spotless, the air scented with fresh linen. Despite the mansion's cold air, she felt warmth stir at the sight of him. When he stumbled in, she ran to him, heart hammering, not sure if it was out of concern or something more dangerous. "Mr. Wright?" she asked, voice a whisper. He didn't reply, only looked at her with bloodshot eyes, jaw clenched like words were caged behind silence. As he nearly fell, her arms caught him, and in that moment, everything shifted. His weight leaned into her. Her breath caught. His usual cold gaze now burned with something she didn't recognize, something raw. He smelled of storm, money, and liquor, yet she didn't step away. "Take me upstairs," he muttered. She nodded, hands trembling as she guided him through the grand hallway. Each step pulsed with something unspoken. Her thoughts scrambled. He wasn't supposed to need her. He wasn't supposed to look at her that way. But here he was, heavy with something more than alcohol. Something that felt like loneliness carved into flesh. The spiral staircase loomed ahead, like a path into uncertainty. By the time they reached the master suite, her head spun. Inside, the air was cool, laced with cedar wood and faint cologne. He collapsed on the bed and she turned to go. "Wait," he rasped. She froze, hand on the doorknob. "Sir?" she asked, not daring to turn. "Stay," he said. It sounded like a command but carried desperation. She turned, heart pounding, eyes meeting his. Not tired, wounded. She walked to the bed, unsure what he needed, unsure what she did. I don't usually," she began, but he sat up, reaching for her hand. "You're the only one who sees me," he whispered. His words hit like a storm. For months, she'd folded his shirts, cleaned his chaos, watched his brooding silence. And now his touch was warm, his gaze searching hers like she was the only truth he had. She sat beside him, breath shallow. Logic begged her to leave, but her heart had already slipped. His lips met hers gently, uncertainly, like a question. They both trembled, but neither stopped. The kiss deepened. His hands found her waist. Her curls cascaded around them, shielding them from the world. She moaned softly into his mouth as he laid her down, his hands trailing the curve of her dress. Her skin came alive beneath him. It wasn't supposed to happen, but that night, they weren't CEO and maid. They were just two broken souls, aching, unraveling into each other. His lips traced her collarbone, breath hot against her chest. Her hands slid into his hair. The storm outside roared, but inside, only hearts beating, breaking, and healing as one. By morning, sunlight slanted through the blinds in golden ribbons. Aliana stirred, the scent of his skin lingering. For a moment she smiled, daring to believe it had meant something. She rose, slipping his shirt over her body, curls falling to her shoulders. As she walked toward the window, the garden sparkled below in early dew. But then she turned and froze. Luke stood by the door, fully dressed, cold, distant. "Get dressed," he said. His voice was low, empty. "Luke," she whispered. "That was a mistake," he cut in, eyes never meeting hers. "It won't happen again." Her heart shattered in places she didn't know existed. She clutched his shirt tighter, her lips parted, but no words came. He walked out, the door clicking shut behind him like a final blow. Alone, Aliana crumbled to the floor. Tears spilled down her cheeks. A silent scream built in her throat. She wrapped her arms around herself, swallowed in shame and heartbreak. The hours dragged. She avoided him in the halls. He never spoke, never looked. It was like she'd ceased to exist until nausea struck one morning, hurling her to the bathroom floor. She thought it was the flu. Then it happened again and again. Her hands shook as she bought the test. She paced her room, breath jagged. When the result appeared, 2 pink lines, her knees buckled. Pregnant. She sat frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. Luke's coldness replayed in her mind. She placed her hand on her belly. Her heart swelled and broke. She wouldn't tell him. He wouldn't care. He had power, women, and a world too big for something as small as truth. That night, Aliana packed her bag, left a resignation letter, and walked out under the cloak of midnight. No one stopped her. No one noticed. She vanished like breath into the wind. Only her unborn child's heartbeat echoed in her chest. Luke Wright never asked where she'd gone, never said her name again. But that night would mark the beginning of a story neither could undo. At the bus station, dawn crept in quietly. Aliana sat wrapped in a gray shawl, duffel bag at her feet, hand protectively over her stomach. She hadn't slept. Too much noise inside her, grief, resolve, silent strength. She'd left behind everything she knew, a mansion she'd cleaned for 2 years, a man who never asked if she was okay. All that mattered now was the life inside her, a life that deserved dignity, not shame. When the bus arrived, she climbed aboard, found a seat near the back, and whispered, "We're starting over, just you and me." The town of El Marriage welcomed her with cloudy skies and crisp air. She rented a room above a bakery owned by kind Mrs. Hawthorne, who asked no questions. Aliana paid with her saved wages. Each night she curled beneath a thin blanket, hand resting over the baby growing inside her. Her bump grew quickly. Her body ached, but she never complained. Instead, she learned to sew baby clothes from scraps, read parenting books, and hummed lullabies to the kicks in her belly. She became a quiet fixture in town, just a woman with a secret and a soft smile. No one asked where she came from, but rumors still stirred. At the bakery, a customer once whispered, "No ring. She's alone and pregnant." Aliana heard, smiled politely, kept frosting cupcakes. She didn't need pity or judgment. She needed strength, and she found it in every thump of the life inside her. Meanwhile, far away, Luke's world continued spinning. Boardrooms, flights, luxury, deals. His schedule was packed, his mind occupied. He never once thought of her, never said her name, never noticed the ache in his chest as he passed the locked guest room, the one that still smelled faintly of her. Back in Elmarriage, winter arrived with snow and contractions. Aliana labored in a modest clinic with peeling pain and kind nurse Clara. The pain was brutal, endless. But Aliana didn't cry. She gritted her teeth, screamed through it, and pushed until she brought forth not one, but 2 miracles. Twin boys, identical, breathtaking. When they were placed on her chest, she wept for the first time since that night. "You're everything," she whispered. Dark curls, brown velvet skin, dimples. But their eyes, sharp, silver gray, told the truth. Luke Wright lived inside them. She named them Elias and Ezra, strength and grace. She never mentioned Luke, signed the birth certificates with her name only, smiled through the sting when someone asked. Back home, Mrs. Hawthorne had prepared the apartment, a crib, bottles, soft blue blankets. "You've got angels," she said gently as Aliana returned with her sons, exhaustion clinging to her bones. Aliana thanked her, eyes barely open. The nights were long, filled with cries, but she never broke. She changed diapers, nursed them, rocked them to sleep, learned how to love without limits, how to live without regret. And though Luke Wright might have forgotten her, she carried his legacy in her arms, twice over. Long time, or so he told himself. But now with her in front of him like this, fragile, collapsed, broken, every buried thought, every unanswered question came roaring back. "Call 911, he barked over his shoulder to his driver, who was already on the phone. Luke pulled off his coat and wrapped it around her shivering body, pressing his hands to her cheeks, trying to coax warmth into her frozen skin. The twins clung to her side, their cries softer now but still filled with panic. Luke looked down at them, the resemblance too glaring to ignore this time. Ezra had his jawline. Elias had that same stubborn brow Luke saw every morning in the mirror. And their eyes. Those weren't just her eyes. He felt the truth hit him like a freight train. "My God," he whispered, "you're mine." The ambulance siren wailed in the distance. Luke lifted Aliana into his arms, holding her close like something sacred, something nearly lost. She didn't wake. Her body was limp against him, her head falling against his chest. But even unconscious, she smelled the same. Lavender and strength and something painfully familiar. The paramedics arrived asking rapid questions. Luke answered what he could, voice clipped and shaking. He stayed beside her in the ambulance, his hand wrapped around hers, while a nurse gently coaxed the twins into the back seat of his car with promises of juice and warm blankets. At the hospital, chaos swirled around him, clipboards, codes, beeping machines. Luke stood rooted to the floor outside the ER, numb and shaking as the twins curled up beside him on the waiting room bench. They were exhausted, afraid. And Luke? Luke had never felt so helpless in his life. Hours passed. A doctor emerged, somber but calm. "She's stable," the woman said, offering a small nod. "Severe exhaustion, malnutrition. Likely hasn't been eating properly for months. The collapse was her body shutting down. She's lucky someone found her when they did." Lucky. Luke almost laughed, bitter and broken. Lucky would have been never letting her go in the first place. "Can I see her?" The doctor hesitated. "Only one visitor for now. She's resting." "But—" Her eyes drifted to the boys. "They should be with someone who knows them." Luke lowered to the twins' level. "Can I take care of you tonight, just until Mommy wakes up?" Ezra looked unsure. Elias clutched his stuffed bear like a shield. "Are you a doctor?" he asked. Luke's lips twitched. "Number. But I know how to make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs." The boys looked at each other. Ezra finally nodded. Luke brought them to the penthouse that night. It had never felt more empty. He watched them curl together on his massive sofa, tiny bodies buried under thick blankets. And for the first time in years, Luke Wright felt small, like a man who had built empires but missed his entire kingdom. He didn't sleep. He sat by the window with the city lights below and her name on his lips. Aliana. She had carried them, raised them, protected them, all while he lived in ignorance and comfort. His heart, once so sure of logic and law, cracked down the middle. He had lost her once. He wouldn't lose her again. The room went still, as if even the air held its breath. Ezra leaned closer to Aliana and whispered something only she could hear. She gave him a small nod, brushing his curls away from his forehead before turning her gaze back to Luke. Her voice was quieter now, hoarse from exhaustion and years of silence, but steadier. "They're not a secret I was trying to keep," she said. "They're a miracle I was trying to protect." Luke's throat worked around the weight of her words. Every breath he took felt jagged, torn between guilt and awe. Elias crept toward him again, this time without prompting, and touched Luke's hand gently. "Are you really my dad?" the boy asked. Luke could barely speak. He nodded, then whispered, "Yes, I am." Ezra studied him like a puzzle with missing pieces. "But where were you?" And that question, simple and piercing, landed like a punch to the ribs. Luke dropped his gaze. "I didn't know you were out there," he murmured. If I had known." He stopped because the rest didn't matter. The damage was done. Aliana watched him closely. For years, she had painted him in harsh colors, arrogant, careless, cold. But this man, on his knees in front of his children, with tears on his cheeks and tremors in his hands, wasn't made of steel or ice. He was broken, and breaking again. "You don't get to just walk in and fix everything," she said, not unkindly. "They're not just pieces for you to glue back together. You don't get fatherhood because you're sorry. You have to earn it." "I will," he said, voice cracking. "I want to try." Ezra turned to his mother, uncertain. Elias tugged at her sleeve. "Can we stay for lunch, Mommy?" Aliana let out a shaky breath, laughing softly despite herself. Leave it to children to be the first to forgive, so quick to want food and comfort before answers. She looked at Luke. "You can sit with us," she said at last, "but you don't get to call them yours until they decide you are." Luke nodded, overwhelmed. "Fair enough." As they stood and moved toward the dining room, Aliana's arms around the boys, Luke a step behind, the silence shifted. It didn't ache like before. It held a different weight now. One of possibility, of slow, uncertain healing. There were still years of hurt to unravel, wounds to mend, and trust to rebuild. But for the first time, Luke wasn't walking past them. He was walking with them. And that, just maybe, was a beginning. "You'll let me." Elias looked at his brother, who nodded slowly, and then back at Luke. "Are you going to take us away?" The question hit Luke like a punch to the gut. Aliana's breath caught. "No," Luke said quickly, firmly. "Never. I just want to be part of your lives, if your mommy says it's okay." He looked at Aliana again. She stared at him for a long, heavy moment, searching for deceit, for manipulation, for anything that resembled the man she once knew. But all she saw was remorse and something else, something real. "We'll see," she whispered. And with those words, Luke felt a flicker of something he hadn't dared feel in a long time. Hope. Not hope for redemption or forgiveness. Not yet. But hope for a chance. A beginning. As he stood watching Aliana guide the twins gently toward the plush couch near the window, he realized something monumental. For the first time in his life, he didn't want to control the narrative. He just wanted to be present in it. Luke couldn't move. His knees sank into the polished marble floor, like anchors dragging him into the weight of his own guilt. His breath hitched as he watched her pull the twins toward the door of the lavish guest wing. The luxurious walls and glittering chandelier felt meaningless now, dwarfed by the truth echoing in every corner of his soul. He had abandoned something priceless, not once, but repeatedly, through ignorance, through arrogance, through blind, selfish pride. His hands trembled as he reached forward, calling out, not with power, not with authority, but with raw desperation. "Please, Aliana, wait!" His voice cracked, swallowed by the stillness. She paused slightly but didn't turn around, her shoulders tense, stiff, like she was holding back a tidal wave of pain. The twins glanced up at her, then back at him. Their wide eyes were still full of curiosity, but now uncertainty lingered too. Luke couldn't breathe properly. He couldn't comprehend how he had stood on stages and commanded millions, brokered billion-dollar deals, been hailed as a genius, and yet missed everything that truly mattered. "I didn't see it. I didn't see you. I didn't see them." "I was blind," he whispered, lowering his forehead to the floor. His pride dissolved like salt in rain. Aliana turned slowly. Her gaze was guarded, emotionless on the surface. But underneath, something churned. Her eyes locked onto his, and in them, he saw the shattered pieces of what they could have been, what they almost were, what he destroyed with his silence and his indifference. "You threw me away like I was a forgotten secret," she said. Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't bitter. It was final. "You had a choice that night, Luke. You chose to forget me. I didn't matter enough to remember." Her words struck like blades, slicing through the veil of denial he'd wrapped himself in for years. He crawled forward, still on his knees, reaching for her hand with shaking fingers. "I was wrong. I was so wrong," he pleaded, tears falling freely, hot trails down his face. staining the pristine floor. I didn't know what love looked like. I didn't know what it felt like to need someone until I saw them standing in front of me. With my eyes and your strength, Aliana's jaw clenched. Her heart thudded so hard it nearly drowned out his words. But she didn't pull away. She let him hold her hand, just for one brief second. He was a man stripped of everything but remorse. I'll spend every day of my life proving to you I'm not that man anymore, he choked out. Every breath I have, I'll use it to make this right. For them, for you, they deserve more. You deserve more. His voice cracked again, hoarse from emotion. She didn't respond. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She simply stepped back, pulled her hand away, gently. Her eyes lingered on his broken figure. Then she turned, and this time, she didn't look back. Not when she walked down the corridor. Not when the boys turned with puzzled expressions. Not when the door closed with a soft click that felt louder than thunder in Luke's ears. He remained on the floor, gasping for breath, his hands pressed against the cold marble, like they could anchor him to something real. The silence that followed was heavier than any boardroom. Heavier than the weight of a billion-dollar empire. It was the silence of loss. Not the kind born of death, but the kind that comes when you realize you've lost something, because you never saw it for what it was. I'm sorry, he whispered to no one. I'm so damn sorry. Time passed slowly, his body frozen in regret, his mind flooded with every memory of Aliana. Now vivid, now painful, now treasured. Too late. As Aliana stood there, breathing in the gravity of the moment, her reflection didn't show the broken-hearted girl she once was. It showed a woman transformed by pain, by perseverance, and most of all, by love that had endured in silence and storm. Her best friend gently reached over, placing a hand on her shoulder. You look like peace, she whispered. Aliana blinked back the tears, nodding. For the first time, I feel it. Outside in the garden they had once watched their boys run through. The chairs were arranged in a half-moon, garlands of white jasmine and soft gold ribbon swaying in the breeze. Luke stood at the altar, his hands clenched nervously at his sides, eyes scanning every face, but landing again and again on the path Aliana would soon walk down. He had imagined this moment, dreamed of it in sleepless nights filled with regret, but never like this, never with this calm certainty in his chest. He wasn't just hoping anymore. He was ready. Then the music began, soft and slow, a piano melody that had once played faintly from a radio the night their hands had first brushed years ago. The memory brought a faint smile to Luke's lips, and then he saw her. Aliana appeared at the end of the aisle, radiant in grace and strength. Every step she took was a victory over the past, a declaration that love, when fought for, could be resurrected. The guests rose, but for Luke, the world faded around her. His heart beat only for her, and hers for him. When she reached him, he whispered, You came back to me. She held his gaze. Number I chose you, again. Their vows were simple, not perfect, but deeply real. Luke promised to never walk away again, to show up every day for her and their boys. Aliana promised to let herself be loved, even when fear tried to whisper otherwise. They didn't promise a life without struggle. They promised a life of trying, together. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the applause was warm and thunderous. But it was the way Luke cradled Aliana's face before he kissed her that truly sealed their story. The soft reverence of a man who had once lost her, and the quiet surrender of a woman finally ready to be loved out loud. Their sons ran up as petals rained from the sky, wrapping their little arms around them with squeals of delight. Aliana laughed through tears. Luke crouched to hug them all, pulling his new family into the circle of his arms. The world felt right, whole. Later that night, as stars blanketed the sky and the celebration dimmed into quiet, Luke held Aliana in his arms beneath the glow of fairy lights. Thank you, he whispered, for giving us this chance. She looked up at him, her head resting against his chest. Thank you for becoming the man who could earn it. And so their story didn't end at the altar. It began anew, full of healing, grace, and the kind of love that comes only after weathering the storm. She had a chance to start over, and now she was about to step into a future she never thought possible. Her twin sons, dressed in small tuxedos, giggled beside her, excited to be the ring bearers for their mother's wedding. The little boys, with their matching smiles and sparkling eyes, were a reminder of the love that had brought them all together. Aliana looked down at them, her heart swelling with affection. These two, her little heroes, were about to witness something magical, something that would show them the power of love, of forgiveness, and of second chances. They had been through so much, and now they would witness the union of their mother and the man who had once been a stranger, but who was now their father, in every sense of the word. Luke stood at the altar, his eyes fixed on the door, his hands clenched at his sides, his heart pounding. The man who had once been so self-assured, so distant, was now vulnerable and full of emotion. He had hurt Aliana in ways he could never take back, but today he was giving her something more powerful than words. His commitment, his love, his promise to always be there. He had spent years running from the truth, from his feelings, and now as he saw her in the doorway, he realized everything he had ever wanted was walking toward him. The music played softly as Aliana walked down the aisle. It wasn't the grandeur of the ceremony that stole her breath. It was the simple truth. She was finally here, standing before the man who had once broken her, but who had also carefully, lovingly pieced her back together. Her hand rested on her father's arm, his gaze proud and silent. The past felt distant now. All that mattered was the future, the one she would build with Luke and the twins. Luke's breath caught when he saw her. She was more beautiful than he had ever imagined. The woman who had once worked quietly in his mansion, the one he had wronged, was now his bride. There were no words for the flood of gratitude, regret, and love that swelled in his chest. He had almost lost her. But now, she was walking toward him. When Aliana reached the altar, her eyes met his, and for a moment, the world disappeared. No past, no pain, only them, only love. She took his hand, and in that simple gesture, 1,000 unspoken promises passed between them. The twins stood at their side, holding hands, smiling with innocent joy. This was their moment, too. The vows were shared. When it was Luke's turn, his voice trembled. "Aliana," he began softly, "I don't deserve you. I don't deserve your forgiveness, your love, or your trust. But I promise you, with everything I am, I will never make that mistake again. I will never miss another moment with you. I will be here every day, loving you, cherishing you, and our children. You are my heart, and I vow to honor that for the rest of my life." Tears welled in Aliana's eyes. This was the man she had once lost. Now, he had changed. He had proven that love could grow in broken places, that trust could be rebuilt. When they kissed, the room held its breath. It was soft at first, tender, then deep with emotion. A kiss of healing, a kiss of forgiveness, a kiss that sealed their love. That night after the ceremony, Luke held Aliana in his arms. The twins were asleep. The house was quiet. His hands traced the lines of her face as if he was memorizing her. He had hurt her, but he had never stopped loving her. And tonight, he vowed he would cherish her soul, her heart, her being. Aliana curled into him, safe, peaceful, loved. She had forgiven him, and in forgiving him, she had also forgiven herself. She had found her way back to him and to herself. They were finally whole, and this time nothing would ever separate them again. The next morning sunlight filtered through the curtains. Tiny feet pattered on the floor. The twins burst into the room giggling. "Good morning, Daddy," one exclaimed. Luke smiled, his heart swelling. He pulled them into his arms, his voice warm. "Good morning, my little champions." Aliana watched quietly, a lump in her throat. Luke, the man who had once been so cold, was now holding their sons with such love. This was her life now. "Breakfast time," she called gently, heading to the kitchen, sunlight warming her skin. She had Luke, she had her sons, and she had a future. Later. At the park, Luke chased the twins through the grass, their laughter ringing like music. He had never been this happy, never felt this whole. That night, he tucked them into bed. kissing each forehead. "I love you, little ones," he whispered. Aliana stood in the doorway, her heart full. Later, wrapped in each other's arms on the couch, Luke whispered, "Thank you for giving me a chance, for letting me be part of this family." She replied, her voice trembling, "Thank you for loving us, for never giving up on us." And as they lay down that night, the house peaceful and quiet, Luke held Aliana close. This was just the beginning. The future was bright, filled with laughter, love, and grace. And as the stars twinkled outside, Luke whispered a silent prayer. "Thank you, Jesus, for bringing us back together, for healing our brokenness, and for showing us what true love really is." And with that, they drifted into a peaceful sleep, wrapped in the warmth of each other's love, hearts finally whole. Special thanks to everyone who listened, supported, and shared this journey. Thank you. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs a reminder of what love, grace, and second chances can do. Stay connected for more heartfelt stories, and thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for being a part of this adventure. I love you all. Love.